I actually have quite a diverse background with experience across various different sectors, including medical research, intellectual property, and research commercialisation. So many years ago now, I started my career in medical research, where I completed my PhD in medicine at the Garvan Institute of Medical Research. I was there for many years and then later moved into intellectual property law, where I became a patent and trademark attorney, and I practiced in a couple of Sydney's top-tier firms for roughly just over 10 years, with a primary focus on biotech and the life sciences. Then later, wanting to be a little bit closer to the coalface of research and innovation, I moved to the university research commercialisation sector. And I've now been here for the past 16 years in this space, and I've been very fortunate enough to lead the commercialisation units of various different universities, including now Macquarie University, where I'm currently the Director of Commercialisation. And across my career, I've been involved in all different types of tech, but my, I guess, primary niche is in the biotech and life sciences and medtech sort of sector. In that time, I have successfully built, negotiated and closed over about 100 deals, of which include about 40 university startups. As I said, in various different technologies, some as diverse as battery technology and software, but primarily in the biotech and life sciences. I've also served on many biotech, early stage biotech boards, as well as being a long-term director on the board of Knowledge Commercialisation Australasia. And KCA, for short, is the peak body for research commercialisation in Australia and New Zealand. Sure. So as the Director of Commercialisation at Macquarie University, I was very well aware of Celosia Therapeutics, as until quite recently, it was a wholly owned subsidiary of the university. And the board of Celosia was looking to implement a new strategy. They wanted to pivot slightly to really focus on the lead asset in the company, the asset called CTX1000. And they felt that my experience both in the science and the commercial aspects of biotech in general would be really valuable in driving this forward. So that led to the opportunity where they offered me the opportunity to lead the company. And it was something that a company based on such groundbreaking technology in this rapidly evolving space of neurodegenerative diseases was really compelling for me, more so for the ability to actually make a difference to patient outcomes and patients' lives. So I didn't think twice about accepting that role to take on the CEO role. So Celosia Therapeutics was established back in 2022 by Macquarie University as a wholly owned subsidiary of the university. It was at that time established as part of an overall broader strategy of the university executive. And that strategy was particularly driven by our Pro-Vice Chancellor of Research, Innovation and Enterprise, Professor Dan Johnson. And he sought to establish this dedicated special purpose vehicle for allowing that high potential research to be grouped together into that entity, which would allow for then more focused R&D and also the easier attraction of external investment to try and move it along that commercial pathway. So by bringing in or consolidating the expertise of the two main research centres at the university, the Dementia Research Centre led by Professor Lars Ittner and Professor Yazi Key, and that of the Motor Neuron Disease Research Centre, which is led by Professor Roger Chung, Celosia as an entity was then positioned to become a leader in the neurodegenerative disease space from its establishment, right from its infancy. The establishment of Celosia really exemplifies Macquarie's commitment to innovation and entrepreneurship, ensuring that groundbreaking research is not only nurtured, but is also given a very clear path to market. Sure. So ALS, or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, it's a neurodegenerative disease that affects the nerve cells in the brain and the spinal cord, which leads to a significant loss of function, requiring significant care for those patients. ALS targets your motor neurons, so they're the things that regulate your voluntary muscle movements, the ones you use to talk, to chew, to move your arms and legs, and also, more significantly, those involved in breathing. ALS affects about 2,000 Australians at any given time, and it's probably one of the most devastating diseases around. It's rapidly progressive and it's 100% terminal. It has a median survival time of only about 2.5 years from diagnosis, which is, it is devastating. The cost of care for ALS patients is also significant. It's estimated to be over $1 million per patient, which places not only a significant burden on the healthcare system, but also on those individual families and carers of those patients. In terms of treatments for ALS, there are no current treatments available to patients, which actually are curative or those that stop or reverse the disease. Those treatments that are available, they only actually treat the symptoms, not the cause, and they result in a very limited benefit to those patients. So there is a massive unmet need in the ALS space for treatments that are disease modifying or those that can stop the disease in its tracks. So Celosia Therapeutics has got a pipeline of new types of genetic medicines, but our really exciting lead is that of CTX1000. So CTX1000, it's aimed at actually stopping the disease such as ALS from progressing. And it works by targeting and breaking down those harmful proteins that build up in the brain of people with ALS, which is actually responsible for most of the damage. CTX1000 is a special treatment. It uses a safe vector to deliver a single dose of the therapy directly into the body, where it can halt the progression of the disease and even restore some of those lost functions. And it's different to what is currently on the market in that it's a single dose. It is disease modifying in that it can stop the disease ALS in its tracks, and it can provide some of those functions back to the patient. So it's a very new and promising approach to, compared to those existing on the market today. Well, it's a combination of undeniable world-class science and a little bit of everything aligned in terms of partnerships, etc. So there's no question that the science behind CTX1000 is world-class. The research was published in the prestigious Neuron Journal. That was recognised by our investment partner, Uniseed, and our other partner, IMR Barrett. We were fortunate enough as a university to join Uniseed. That saw us being able to access significant funding in partnership with our other investor, IMR Barrett, who's a hedge fund manager who was unfortunately also recently diagnosed with ALS. So in a very competitive funding environment in the biotech space at the moment, our ability to secure this level of investment really underscores the uniqueness and the potential of our approach, and particularly that of CTX1000, in addressing this very significant unmet medical need. Yeah, so the funds will be transformative for Celosia. There's no question about that. And they'll really allow us to fast track the remaining preclinical and regulatory work that's required to take Celosia, or the CTX1000 asset, through to the first in human trials. And that will be under the guidance of Professor Dominic Rowe, who is one of the world leaders in ALS. And we hope to do so within the next 12 to 18 months on the basis of the significant funding that we've received. So if successful, CTX 1000 will not only give patients with ALS more time and improve quality of life, but it will also significantly reduce the burden on caregivers, family, etc., which will offer a very much brighter future for everyone affected by this devastating condition. So yes, I have been in research commercialisation for almost 20 years, where I've been fortunate, as I said, to lead the commercialisation teams, not only of Macquarie, but those of G08, such as University of Sydney, University of Melbourne, and also another mid-tier university such as Western Sydney University. And over that time, there have been, quite a lot of trends, but there have been common elements out there, common challenges as well in research commercialisation in general. So some of the recent changes in government policies, such as the Australia's Economic Accelerator, or AEA, that's really created a much more supportive environment for translating your pure academic research into commercial outcomes. So there's been a shift from your blue sky research to translational research, and the government has been really supportive in offering large pots of money to move that along, which is great. In terms of other trends, there's been a definite shift, I would say, over the last 5 years in the mindsets of universities around considering inventor-led startups as vehicles for commercialisation, to be viable alternatives to your traditional standard licensing models. Wind back the clock 5 years ago, and most universities, it was a case of commercialisation was done via a standard licensing model. You'd find a partner, you'd license out for either some fees and or royalties. That was your bog standard approach. And over the last little while, there has been that definite mind shift around, well, we can do it in a different way. Some of those learnings have been taken from overseas, particularly the US universities, where startups are, part of their mindset and have been for some time. And we're just catching up, really, in Australia. But this change of mindset is very obvious when you look at the Scopus survey, with the number of startups per university growing year on year. Which is exciting, and certainly exciting for us. Also allows us to really foster those startups through our Macquarie University incubator as well. So another recent trend, I guess, is for universities to establish their own early stage venture funds. Some of them are doing it through philanthropic endowments or partnerships with larger funds or superannuation funds. And they're doing that to try and, I guess, incubate a little bit further the tech, the company, so that they can add extra value to make them much more attractive to an external investor or an industry partner. Because quite often when you're approaching an industry partner, we're always getting told the same thing. Oh, it's really interesting stuff, but it's too early. Come back after you've developed a bit further. But typically universities don't have the funds to put in to develop it that little bit further. There is this growing trend around partnerships, particularly international partnerships in commercialisation. So Australian innovations are accessing global markets a lot quicker than previous before. We're no longer looking at just Australia as your end game. It's always Australia and then globally. But I guess in terms of challenges, the most common challenge has been most of my career and still is. And it was actually one of the topics on the National Biotech and Medtech Commercialisation Summit is around the Valley of Death. So the Valley of Death is the gap between your traditional research grants, typically from government, etc., your ARC, NH and MRC, and your proof of concept funds. Some universities have the proof of concept fund that can give a little bit. And then there's the big gap before you can get venture capital, and it's generally referred to as the valley of death. And in Australia in particular, it's very challenging in that space because there is very limited number of specialised early stage investors who actually understand the long development timelines and the high capital required for particularly drug development. So there are a couple of early stage investors in that space. As I said, Uniseed is one of those that particularly assist in trying to bridge that valley of death. But that is a very much a real concern, and it is something that we hope that in the future can be much easily addressed and overcome. So the fantastic research that is coming out of universities and other institutions can actually be realised, and we can see real world impact and patient outcomes.